The quarter-life crisis. Welcome to your existential dread era. If life transitions were Netflix shows, the quarter-life crisis would be that dark, confusing series that everyone says is important, but mostly just makes you question everything you thought you knew about yourself. This is when you realize that being an adult is basically just pretending you know what you're doing while Googling how to fold fitted sheets at 2 a.m. The quarter-life crisis hits somewhere between 22 and 28, right when you're supposed to have your life figured out according to every movie you've ever watched. Except, instead of having a corner office and a perfectly curated Instagram feed, you're eating cereal for dinner and wondering if your college degree was just an expensive piece of paper that qualifies you to be professionally confused. You'll spend hours scrolling through LinkedIn, comparing yourself to people who somehow became CEOs, while you're still trying to figure out if you're supposed to contribute to a 401k, or if that's something only real adults do. Every day feels like you're supposed to be somewhere else, doing something more important, but you have no idea what that something is. The quarter-life crisis person is constantly asking themselves deep philosophical questions like, what is my purpose? And should I go back to school? And is it normal to have a nervous breakdown in the Target checkout line? They're basically having an identity crisis while trying to maintain the illusion that they're a functioning member of society. The career changer, the professional plot twist. The career changer is that person who wakes up one day and decides that spending 8 hours a day doing something that slowly drains their soul might not be the best life strategy. They're like someone who's been playing a video game on the wrong difficulty setting and finally decided to start over on a level that doesn't make them want to throw their controller across the room. This transition usually starts with the Sunday scaries becoming a daily occurrence instead of just a weekly existential dread session. They'll sit in meetings thinking, I could be doing literally anything else right now, and start fantasizing about becoming a baker, a dog walker, or literally anything that doesn't involve checking email 47 times a day. The career changer goes through distinct phases. First, they start secretly taking online courses during lunch breaks. Then they begin having hypothetical conversations about what it would be like to work in a completely different field. Finally, they reach the point where they're willing to take a pay cut just to wake up without feeling like their soul is being slowly extracted through a straw. They become experts at explaining to confused family members why they're leaving their good job to pursue something that makes them happy. It's like trying to explain why you'd rather eat food you enjoy instead of food that pays well, but tastes like cardboard and existential regret. The new parent, from human to sleep-deprived zombie. The new parent transition is like being enrolled in the world's most intense boot camp, except instead of training for military combat, you're training to keep a tiny human alive while operating on 3 hours of sleep and coffee that's been reheated 6 times. It's beautiful, terrifying, and completely life-altering in ways that no one can adequately prepare you for. Before becoming a parent, you were a person with hobbies, opinions, and the ability to go to the bathroom without an audience. After becoming a parent, you're basically a milk-producing, diaper-changing, worry-generating machine who considers showering a luxury activity and eating a hot meal an impossible dream. New parents develop superhuman abilities like being able to change a diaper in complete darkness, surviving on 15-minute power naps, and having entire conversations using only exhausted facial expressions with other parents. They also develop the ability to cry about absolutely anything. Commercials, running out of coffee, the fact that their baby is growing up too fast. The new parent spends a lot of time Googling things like, is it normal for babies to make that noise? And how long can you survive without sleep before hallucinating? They become experts at doing everything one-handed while holding a baby, and they measure time not in hours or days, but in feeding schedules and nap windows. The empty nester, when your full-time job moves out. The empty nester is experiencing the weirdest plot twist of parenting. After spending 18 years being needed constantly, Suddenly, their services are no longer required on a daily basis. It's like being fired from a job you've been doing for 2 decades, except the job was your entire identity, and now you have to figure out who you are when you're not reminding someone to brush their teeth. They walk past their kid's empty bedroom and feel a mix of pride, sadness, and confusion about what to do with all this newfound free time. They can eat dinner whenever they want, watch TV shows without worrying about inappropriate content, and have conversations that aren't interrupted by requests for snacks or money. The empty nester goes through a period of rediscovering themselves, which often involves trying new hobbies, traveling to places they couldn't go with kids, and having way too many conversations about what their children are doing at college. They become the type of people who text their kids photos of the family dog with captions like "miss you," as if the dog wrote it. They also experience the strange phenomenon of having a clean house that stays clean, which is both wonderful and slightly unsettling. It's like their home has been transformed from a chaotic family headquarters into a peaceful museum of their parenting years. The divorce breakup survivor. The relationship phoenix. The divorce or major breakup person is basically going through a complete life reboot, except instead of turning their computer off and on again, they're turning their entire existence off and on again. They're like someone who's been playing a 2-player game for years and suddenly has to figure out how to play solo mode. This transition involves rediscovering who you are when you're not part of a couple, which can be both liberating and terrifying. They'll find themselves making decisions without consulting anyone else and feeling weird about it, like they forgot to ask permission to live their own life. The divorce breakup survivor goes through phases. First, there's the shock and sadness, then the angry phase where they redecorate everything and throw away items that remind them of their ex, then the experimental phase where they try new things they couldn't do before, and finally the acceptance phase where they realize they actually like their new life. They become experts at explaining their relationship status to confused relatives and well-meaning friends who keep asking if they're putting themselves out there yet. They develop new skills like learning to do things alone that they used to do as a couple, and discovering that going to movies by themselves is actually pretty great. The big move. The geographic identity crisis. The big move person has decided to completely change their environment, which sounds exciting until they realize that moving to a new place means starting over with literally everything. Friends, favorite restaurants, grocery stores, and that one really good dentist they finally found after years of searching. They're like someone who decided to switch from Android to iPhone, except instead of just learning a new operating system, they have to learn an entire new city, culture, and social ecosystem. Everything from finding a good pizza place to figuring out local traffic patterns becomes an adventure in adulting. The big move person spends a lot of time explaining to people back home what their new city is like, while simultaneously Googling things like how to make friends as an adult and best neighborhoods for people who don't know anyone. They become professional small talk makers, perfecting their response to "so what brings you here?" They go through phases of excitement about their new adventure, followed by homesickness, followed by slowly building a new routine, and finally reaching the point where they can give directions to lost tourists and feel like they actually belong somewhere new. The college graduate, from structure to figure it out yourself. The college graduate is experiencing the ultimate educational plot twist. After 16 years of being told exactly what to do, when to do it, and how they'll be graded on it, they're suddenly released into a world where nobody gives them a syllabus for life or tells them when their next assignment is due. They're like someone who's been playing a video game with clear objectives and progress markers for years, and suddenly they're in an open-world game with no instructions and infinite possibilities. The freedom is both exhilarating and completely overwhelming. The college graduate spends a lot of time trying to figure out what real life is supposed to look like, while dealing with the shock of realizing that their expensive education primarily taught them how to write papers about things they'll never think about again. They're professionals at explaining why their degree qualifies them for jobs that seem completely unrelated to what they studied. They experience the strange transition from measuring their life in semesters to measuring it in what exactly? Pay periods? Seasons? The concept of summer vacation becomes a distant memory, replaced by the reality that work doesn't stop just because it's nice outside. The midlife crisis, the great life audit. The midlife crisis person has reached the point where they're looking at their life like it's a subscription service they're not sure they want to keep paying for. They're basically conducting a comprehensive audit of their existence and finding that some things need to be canceled, upgraded, or completely reimagined. This transition often involves questioning everything: their career, their relationships, their goals, and whether they really need to keep pretending to like wine just because it seems sophisticated. They're like someone who's been following a recipe for decades and suddenly wondering if they actually like the dish they've been making. The midlife crisis person might start doing things they never thought they'd do: taking art classes, buying motorcycles, or having deep conversations about whether they're living their authentic life. They become experts at explaining to their teenagers why they're suddenly interested in things like meditation retreats and organic farming. They go through a period of experimentation that might look crazy to outside observers but makes perfect sense to them. It's like they're finally giving themselves permission to be the person they actually are, instead of the person they thought they were supposed to be. The retirement transition, from alarm clocks to freedom. The retirement person is experiencing the ultimate work-life balance. All life, no work. After decades of being defined by their job title and daily schedule, they suddenly have to figure out who they are when they're not rushing to meetings or checking emails. It's like being released from a very long, very structured prison sentence into a world of infinite Tuesdays. They go through an adjustment period where they wake up at their usual time out of habit, then remember they don't have anywhere to be, which is both wonderful and slightly disorienting. They become the type of people who can go to the grocery store at 10 a.m. on a Wednesday and feel like they're getting away with something. The retirement person often discovers hobbies they never had time for, travels to places they always said they'd visit someday, and has the luxury of moving at their own pace instead of everyone else's. They also become experts at politely deflecting questions about whether they're bored or miss working from people who can't imagine life without a daily commute. The conclusion: life transitions are just adulting with extra steps. So there you have it. Every major life transition explained, from the quarter-life crisis people questioning everything they thought they knew about adulthood, to the retirement folks finally getting to live life on their own terms. The beautiful thing about life transitions is that they're basically proof that humans are incredibly adaptable, even when we're convinced we have no idea what we're doing. Whether you're the person changing careers for the third time, the new parent wondering how anyone keeps tiny humans alive, or the recent graduate realizing that nobody actually knows what they're doing either, remember that transitions are just life's way of keeping things interesting. Every transition is basically just learning to be yourself in a completely new context, which sounds terrifying but is actually kind of amazing when you think about it. If this video helped you realize that your current life transition disaster is actually totally normal, and everyone else is just better at pretending they have it figured out, smash that like button, subscribe for more content that makes existential dread slightly more entertaining, and drop a comment telling me which life transition currently has you Googling "Is this normal?" at 2 a.m.